that's precious. Thank you so much. All right, so you have heard from Wally that we go to CGMS every year, and CGMS 2 is this year, but because we didn't have IROWG workshop in between, so usually we just summarize what has been going on. So I give 3 presentations to the CGMS working group 2, and that's where usually the working group 2 collect all the information from different scientific working group. You know, for example, our RO working group, there's also ITOF, they are working more on the readings. And there's, you know, the space weather coordination group, etc. So you can see the topics are listed on this slide, and all the presentations for the CGMS for the CGMS meetings you can find from CGMS webpage or from our IROWG webpage. Click the Documents tab, you should find them. So let me go to the next one. So for the working group 2, I have 2 presentations because they actually give us luxury time due to the ROMAX importance they have recognized. For the first one is more general presentation for IROWG updates. Because again, no workshop, so we cannot formally put our recommendation beyond the without the consensus from our people. So we continue support our recommendations from IROWG 9, what you have mentioned. And we are also talking about something it should be considered to review by the CGMS. Climate subgroup has been working on this best practice document, and it was distributed during the working group 2 meeting. And eventually we would like to this being finalized so that we can pass to CGMS and all the partners and agencies can use this document as their best practice. Some topics also recommended during this presentation, and I think Tony actually have more complete in the list. Here, just 2 of them has been presented, but I'm not going to touch much here. Well, give that to Wally, to Tony. And we also mentioned this upcoming buffer changes. Again, you know, this is not only for us. We have to give a heads up to all the agencies that we are changing. We would like to change this buffer format. For ROMAX, CGMS 51, we had a proposal about ROMAX. So 52, we gave the midterm review. So this is why we had ROMAX workshop right before CGMS 52 working group meeting. So this is just 1 week after. So during the weekend, Rick, me, and Christian and Ben, we actually worked during weekends to form this this slides for the CGMS meeting. So it's a basic summary of what has been happening during the workshop and provide more results. And since I already presented some of the figures you have seen, and we are going to see the more updates during the next 2 days. So I just skipped the slides. But then we were invited to CGMS plenary beyond the W working group 2 because they would like to hear what we have learned as a community to organize such an international collaboration. So I gave a presentation to talk about the first lessons we have learned. Just some, basic introduction. And the first lesson we learned is that we realize this does require extensive effort. We have to have a lot of complex negotiation with commercial providers. The government support and funding are necessary, even though it's limited, very small amount, but that actually played a key role when we're trying to get some of the data. NASA, we talk with NASA, eventually make ROMAX happen. We also have gone through a lengthy process regarding the legal agreements The reason is we do have commercial providers. They have to make profits, so they are donating their data to Romax. Do have their risk because they are facing criticism if their data quality is not good enough, and if they can sell the data, in time, they will lose some benefit as well. So we are trying to make sure everybody involved in this process being protected. And EUMETSAT took the responsibility to set up the legal agreement. It's very generous to researchers. You can use for research. That's the bottom line. But we want making sure communications happens two ways. If we found problems, we need to communicate internally so that we can improve the data quality rather than criticizing them. We don't want to lose data. That's the bottom line. And again, with all this, lengthy process, I still think the overall response from every party we have been involved with is very positive, and I really appreciate that. Lesson 2, we found out the processing capabilities necessary with commercial companies dealing with their own data processing. Independent processing is necessary, and the expertise from the receiver side, from the customer side, should be maintained. Because when we do the data differently in the processing process, we can find out a lot of problems from the raw data, from the retrievals, and we can benefit with each other. We have quite iterations with our Yunyao and the Tianmu commercial companies, and I believe they benefit a lot from communication with EUMETSAT. Of course, we cannot share the software, but we can talk about the scientific understanding. And also, I want to emphasize expertise over the customer side is very critical and is necessary. Level 1 and level 2 zero data are very important. We use the bending angle, relative to the level 2 or level 1B, whatever you call. But we found out we have to go back to level 1 or level 0 data. And for even go further, this is one of our recommendations for climatology studies. Level 0 is more important. So I think this should be stay in our recommendation, at least somewhere. Romax has proved this is very critical as well. This one I mentioned already, and we are able to make it into the HLPP document from CGMS already. This is talking about uniform spatial and local time coverage. Number is not the only factor. I think we need to look at the other, look after something else as well. So for the last few seconds, 30 seconds, I want to tell you that we have been doing a good job as a community. This is from the Working Group 2 presentations mentioning about IROWG 10, mentioning about our Romax. And compare all the other working groups, our recommendations got a lot of attention, and many of them accepted and presented to CGMS plenary. And also commercial aspect has been really has got a lot of attention, and our recognition about the global license, about the open data policies has been going into the documentation as well. Last one is that it's when I heard from other working group and this one from ESA saying the IROWG has proven useful, I was very happy to hear that, because I think that simple sentence tells us we have been working together very well. So thank you, everyone, for that. That's it from me. Any questions for this part?
So what were your personal impressions for the response of the CGMS members? What were they impressed with? What were they confused about? So forth.
So I probably can give you relative scale, because many years ago, before ROMAX, when we talk about 20K or even more, the response from some agencies were more like everybody wanted more. We can have more microwave, we can have more RO, and then why we give more to RO? So when ROMAX pop up, at least the attitude is not as like that. They are more like, we would like to see the scientific evidence, and ROMAX is at least provides an opportunity for them to see that. But on the other hand, we cannot waiting for forever. I think they are eager to know. And I hope that we can work harder because, as I said, the window is short. We need to provide some conclusions by the next CGMS meeting, which is 53 in April and June. So I think the general attitude is better than before. But on the other hand, there's always competitions in their agencies about the money, funding, etc. So RO is not unique now in terms of commercial data.
Yeah, I'm interested in the CGMS report on best practices. Is that something that has already been sort of made public, or?
Tony, do you want to answer that for the?
Well, we mentioned it, but it hasn't really been formally put for endorsement by CGMS. So I think after a review here, I think we ought to do that. We just didn't push it that hard, but what we have to do is just get it formally accepted by CGMS, and we can do that for next time.
I guess if you would circulate it on the IROWG mailing list, that whenever it happens.
Oh yeah. We'll give you guys a link to it.
Thanks.
And in principle, this is a good thing because we have always formulated our recommendations and with some rationale, and then it tends to be forgotten after a while that it has already been up there. And in such a document, this is all saved for later use.
And that reminds another question I received is that the PRO, some working group people, they're actually trying to form some, recommendation or best practice, not best practice, but it's more that how to, moving forward from PRO for using PRO data. And they are asking whether we can distribute through our email list. I think that's probably appropriate for people to see that. It's not there yet, but I think in the following years, if we have such a documentation, you would like to have community feedback, we can accommodate that.
Rick, I think you wanted to say something.
Similar question to Stephen's question. Are other providers of observations, we see these FSOI charts and there's like 25 different types of observations. Are any of the other 25 being asked similar questions about how many of their observations are needed or how important they are or what their biases are? Ben was showing today that we're talking about biases of 0.1 degrees now. And are these questions being asked of other observation systems? Do you get any sense of that, or does anybody know?
I think I'm not the right person to answer that question. Probably some government agencies can tell us why RO is in this position. And then we have to hurry up. I think I got the flag about timing.
I have an idea, and that's coming from internal EUMETSAT work. We are going to fly a constellation of microwave sensors, EPS Sterna, which is, I think, 3 satellites. AWS has been launched on the same rocket as GNOMES 5 and the 6 satellites. And there has been an EDA similar as was done by Harnisch et al. Many years ago to find out how the increase in numbers of passive microwave observations, temperature only or temperature plus humidity, how that would scale with the number of observations they get. And guess what? There was no saturation, and the more you get, the more observations you have, the better it gets. I think RO was just the first who was asking that question and provided answers, but the other types of observations will follow.
Right, and this is also why there is so much interest in this ROMIX experiment, right? So every supporter of any measurement method will tell you if we have more satellites, we have more impact, right? And we have somehow shown with OSIS and so on that it's expected to happen. And with the ROMIX experiment, for the first time, we can actually show with real data that it happens. And so far, this is not really possible for most of the other missions because most of the other instruments that they use all the data they have, right? And that you have additional data that you could use, and at least for this short time interval, this is a very special situation.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm next. Before I start, I want to get around